Yeah, so this is me. As Angela said, I'm the director of Kite at Keele University. I've been in the role a number of years. Prior to that, I was head of digital education at Keele as well. And really, my current focus is driving forward AI integration and implementation in teaching and learning at Keele. So it's quite an exciting time for us. It's not without its challenges. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk you through a presentation that I gave to our faculty education committees, and just to give you a flavour really of the kind of things that we're doing. So we have a generative AI and education framework, which I produced and was approved at Senate in June this year. The framework essentially takes 6 principles that were already agreed by education committee, and education committee makes is involved in a lot of the decision making around education, and 6 principles, which I'll come on to shortly, form the basis of this framework, and the framework really focuses more on how to embed those in practice. So as part of that conversation with faculty committees, I didn't want to assume that everybody, even now, that everybody knows what Gen AI is, because, I don't want to assume that everybody is on the same level playing field, although, that there is an expectation that by now, because Gen AI has been around for some time, that people would know that. But I still like to just clarify what we mean by generative AI and the difference between Gen AI and AI. So we talked about that, and a little bit about obviously how the sector approach has changed quite considerably. Initially, as you probably all know, the sector was very, anti-AI and very much, okay, we need to ban AI, which was never going to work. And thankfully, everybody saw that. But it's how do we embed and implement AI in an ethical way? And for Keele, it really is, again, thinking about, obviously, you have to be aware of the risks. But being aware of the risks rather than being risk averse is the approach that they're taking. And, like many institutions, obviously that awareness of graduates, entering a world where AI is in the norm, and there's an expectation that they'll be using AI in roles. We need to educate them. We need to make it part of graduate attributes. That AI literacy is part of that. And what I've found is actually resonating quite a bit more with our academics, actually, is the piece on inclusive education. So really getting them to think about, okay, so we have talked about it's important that that students, develop AI literacy, but also from a teaching perspective, how can we make use of AI to support widening access and participation, and creating more inclusive learning experiences? And certainly this has engaged quite a few members of staff in thinking about how they can do that. So the purpose of the Gen AI framework, as I said earlier, is about responsible integration, developing AI literacies across the university for staff and students' use, and then that we make sure that we continuously evaluate and keep up to speed with changes in developments, because as we know, everything around AI is out of date within a week or so. The pace of change is so quick. So the framework is based on these guiding principles, that we support staff and students to become AI literate, that we support students to use Gen AI tools ethically and appropriately. And we do that, at the beginning of our modules, really, we start talking about ethical use of AI rather than making assumptions. So this does require staff to obviously adapt their teaching methods to incorporate and really think about Gen AI use. And we have AI leads in every faculty area that I work with who are supporting this integration and doing a great job. And they're also part of our workshop series that we're rolling out currently as well. So I'm really grateful for them to do that. Fair access is really important. So, we have Microsoft Copilots as part of Office 365, any other Gen AI tools usage. Obviously, again, it's ethical guidance around that. So we have produced ethical guidance for student use that's part of our Gen AI hub. Okay, and obviously academic integrity and making sure that academic integrity is maintained across all assessments. And finally, best practice. So, staff sharing best practice in terms of how they've used AI in teaching, learning, and assessment. So with the building AI literacy part of it, obviously supporting staff with critical prompting so they can support students with, crafting the prompts and critically evaluating those. That's part of our approach, as is this real focus on strengthening human capabilities. So, really putting the human-centered approach first and then thinking about AI can enhance the learning, and critically understanding how AI is used in the subject domain. So having an overview and understanding of AI is important, but we're really encouraging staff to really explore the use of AI in their own subject area, which will differ across different subject areas. On ethical use, obviously making sure that in teaching and learning you have that balance between using AI and the human-centered approach, which I referred to earlier. So you're not just offloading everything through AI activities. And certainly ethical exploration will include, things around bias and copyright and privacy, as you'd expect. So I've already talked a little bit about the institutional tools. Some students, are quite resistant about using AI in their studies, which is why it really is important to scaffold it effectively and to address student concerns, but also making the point that AI is already integrated in many of the tools that they'll already use, such as the KLE, which is our VLE, the PowerPoint, and other third-party platforms. And this is why it's important to really focus on that with staff and students, that inclusive learning and thinking about how AI can really support diverse needs. So for me, I'm really trying to move the narrative more towards how can we use AI, to support more inquiry-based learning and critical thinking. Students use AI quite a bit for summarizing information and making sense of complex ideas and concepts. But what we want to do is try and shift that from beyond that information access and summarizing to really thinking how can we really use this tool to think about critical thinking more. I think it gives us a real opportunity to do that, actually. How can we use it to support more personalized learning, particularly around formative feedback? How can we think about our assessments? Obviously, this is a really big one because everybody talks about assessments. In fact, I reviewed my own assessment because I also teach a third-year module on podcasts and radio. And I didn't so much change the assessment as really review the actual marking criteria and reflecting on what I was expecting, them through the learning process. So that there's still quite a bit of work here to do in terms of looking at assessment methods and making sure that they are supporting the graduate skills and the critical evaluation skills. So we developed an AI competency framework. This isn't it. This is just a kind of summarizing, if you like, overview. But essentially the framework just sets the minimum benchmarks for staff so that they're able to embed it in AI into activities and teaching and learning, because, you need to start from somewhere and really understanding how AI models work, experimenting with those AI models in your own, just experimenting first, writing prompts, understanding how prompt engineering works, and having that real understanding of ethical use, at which point then you can start to, try to embed AI in activities to support that human-centered creativity. So for Keele, what's next? So obviously continuously reviewing what we're doing, with faculty, gathering case studies and examples of good practice and student feedback, very important. And continuing to support staff and review our own activities. So we have a generative AI workshop series. We also have an AI for Educators self-enroll course, which is self-paced. I'm trying to get that made mandatory so that all staff have to do it. I'm in the process of just speaking with our HR team at the moment because it covers the basics of AI in education. And we've also got an AI ideas exchange launching next month, where we're encouraging staff to come for almost an in-person event in terms of a sort of like, how might we? So any questions that they have, we'll explore with them, as in Kite team will explore with them and try to come up with some solutions, or encouraging academics from across all faculties to come along and also talk about what they've been doing. So in June this year, we held our internal education conference, which was on AI, and it was a really fantastic turnout for that. And a little bit of feedback here about how, some takeaways from that from academic staff in terms of, again, thinking about assessment, and, thinking about how they might use it to generate content. We've got our generative AI workshop series, so you can get a flavour of that there, the types of things that we're doing. We've got our academic colleagues supporting us and delivering some of these ones, such as the AI Assessment Lab and the Prompting Party. Our Learning Experience Design team have been doing the AI Meets ABC sessions. And we've also got some introductory sessions as well, just introducing staff to AI and teaching and learning. So as you can see, there's a range of workshops there that we're running over semester one, and then we're going to have a bit of a review at the end of semester one. Feedback so far, though, has been quite positive. So again, that concept there I said about humans first, then introducing AI, then do that critiquing. And some staff obviously are using it to make more efficient workflows. This is the AI ideas exchange that I referred to earlier. So this is where, we really want that. That's kind of like that sharing practice. It's also among staff. So I'm hoping this is the first one that we're running on October the 15th, but I'm hoping that will be useful, and we'll also perhaps be able to follow up on some case studies there. This is our AI for Educators course I mentioned earlier, and that's been really well received. And I think the fact that it is all, it is asynchronous and self-paced is really helpful for those academics that just can't, can't always make some of the workshops. And here's our links that I shared internally with staff. So obviously the Gen AI framework connects to the assessment and feedback code of practice, because we've been reviewing that in the light of AI, and the inclusive education framework. Don't think I see if I can share the Gen AI hub actually. Sure. Here we go. So everything is stored on this is our intranet page, and our Gen AI hub, where we've got everything around AI is sort of stored here. So we have the educators course, a Teams channel directly linked to AI, and we've started to build up some resources. So you can see that they're like one-page resources really to support staff. So that's where we are at the moment.